choice to see schools go backwards with cuts to funding. Our nation's future will be strengthened if we make sure every school is strengthened for the future, and I'm certainly very pleased that this agreement in New South Wales today will strengthen education in this great state. We're very happy to take your questions.
Premier, how do you think Tony Abbott will make your decision this time?
Well, I watched interviews with the opposition leader on Sunday. He made clear, whether in relation to GST distributions or other issues, that the State Premier's principal responsibility is to their citizens. I'm the Premier of New South Wales. I've said throughout this debate that if the proposal was in the best interests of New South Wales, if we could find the funding, we would sign up to a report that for more than a year, the Education Minister and I have said is broadly in line with the directions, the reforms we've been introducing in education in New South Wales.
Is it a matter of locking it in before perhaps there is an out of government?
Well, certainly part of the deal, which the Prime Minister offered Sunday a week ago, talks about legislating for the funding package, also that the funding will appear in the next Commonwealth budget. But can I answer your real question, Andrew, and that is that we, on Cabinet yesterday, decided that we would fund our $1.7 billion by the deferral of the intergovernmental agreement business taxes, by the introduction in 2015-2016 of a new efficiency dividend, and by further budget savings across the whole of government, but also including a continuation of our reforms to vocational education and training, including the levels of fees and subsidies that are paid, which of course is at the present time subject to an IPART report. That's the way that we've been able to prioritise education by delivering our $1.7 billion and getting a return, as the Prime Minister said, of $2 for every $1. I don't believe that additional dollars alone delivers a better education system. What I do believe is the resources to cement the sorts of reforms that we've been pursuing in New South Wales, reforms that are reflected in the Gonski report, will help to empower local schools, will lift the standards of teachers across the state, and will ultimately deliver better outcomes and better results for our students.
And you do believe that this deal will put pressure on your Liberal counterparts to reach a similar agreement?
Well, at COAG on Friday, only two jurisdictions, the Northern Territory and the Western Australia, were positively opposed to the proposal. Every other jurisdiction that I saw and heard on that day said they would do what New South Wales had been doing. So last Monday a week ago, Cabinet had a first look at what the cost to the state would be, had a first discussion around whether the entirety of Cabinet was happy to share the load to prioritise the delivery of this agreement for New South Wales. Over the week, between last Monday and yesterday, led by the Treasurer and the Minister for Education, further work was done, which was presented to me when I came back from the COAG meeting on Friday, which led to Cabinet's decision yesterday to enter the agreement, but to do so making the responsible but tough decisions to rein in expenditure in other areas.
Can you explain again just how you're planning to do that? It sounds like pay fees might go up.
Well, vocational education reforms are being pursued by the government, and yes, IPART already is looking at issues around fees and subsidies, and that will be part of the package. But equally, there are a number of business taxes that under an intergovernmental agreement were due to be abolished that will continue temporarily to assist us to fund this, in addition to the introduction of an efficiency dividend in the 15-16 financial year and thereafter. I'm happy to get you those figures, Andrew.
This would survive a change of government if it's embedded in legislation before September 14.
Well, legislation can always be changed, and there is a clear choice here. I mean, I'm passionate about these reforms. It's taken us 5 years to get here. 5 years of hard work driven every day by a passion for making sure that every Australian child gets a great education. It's a question now for Mr Abbott and the other side of politics to make their position clear. But let's note that to date their position has been to say that the current system is not broken and it should continue. What that means is a recipe for cutbacks in our schools. What this agreement means on average is an additional $4,300 per child, an additional $1.5 million per school. what the approach of the current system would lead you to, on average, is a cutback of $500,000 per school. So the choice is pretty clear.
When will that money begin to flow?
This is money that will flow for school year next year, 2014.
And I have to say, to be perfectly frank and blunt, that it wasn't an easy decision, because a decision not to sign up to the agreement comes with a pretty big sting in the tail. And not just termination of national partnership funds, but also a reduction in the rate of increase in base funding for schools across New South Wales. So, devil in a hard place. Ultimately, what Cabinet decided was to back in education, to take the tough but responsible decision to find the savings, to deliver those additional resources, to deliver them more fairly, to raise standards, and to aim to deliver better outcomes for students across the state.
You're characterising this as a carrot and stick approach by the Prime Minister.
Well, there's no secret in that. I don't think I'm making news here, but it wasn't as if, Quentin, if we said we weren't going to sign, we could simply sail along unaffected. The national partnerships finishes, and there would have been a penalty in relation to the rate of increase to funding to schools across the state.
Prime Minister, is this a special deal for New South Wales? Is that per capita grants to other states or how?
No, this is the same deal that is on the table for every other state and territory. It's 2 for 1, $2 from the Commonwealth, $1 from the state or territory. It's the 6-year transition period. It's the commitment that there should be no more cuts to education. It's a commitment that jurisdictions should step up to a 3% indexation rate. New South Wales will do that in 2016. And it's a drive towards the school resource standard. And that school resource standard is about making sure that in every school there is the right level of resourcing to get the children in that school a great education, knowing as we do that it takes more resources to teach a disadvantaged child, an Indigenous child, a non-English speaking child, a child with a disability, and it just costs more money to run schools that are small or in remote locations. So that's all factored into the standard and the model.
Now that we've got New South Wales signed up, have you had any approaches from other states? In the meantime, are you expecting other states to fall in line?
Well, I'd have to go check my mobile phone to answer that question.
Premier, what do you say to businesses who, for the sake of Gonski, may not be getting the tax reform they wanted at the moment, to TAFE students who may be paying higher fees for the sake of Gonski?
Well, ultimately, we had to make some tough decisions. Those tough decisions mean that we're prioritising school education, which ultimately is the way most of us end up in business, in other professions, or in training. We need to ensure that our students get the best possible start to education. We need to end some of the conflicts that have affected government and non-government education in the past, and we need to deliver reforms that put principals and communities in greater control of our schools, that seek to raise teacher standards, and that start to address some of those literacy and numeracy issues that have plagued this country for too long.
Can I ask you just on a different topic? The population is moving to 23 million estimated tonight. Is this time for enough discussion about a population target?
As I understand it, we will see the 23rd million Australian sometime tonight, presumably a new baby born, number 23 million. I think what this reinforces for all of us is by the standards of the world, we are a relatively low population country, but we've got the 12th strongest economy in the world. Now, that's an achievement, but it's an achievement that isn't guaranteed in the future. We've got to work for it, and a key way we've got to work for it is making sure that our children are getting the best education. As part of this arrangement today, we have both endorsed the goal that I set for the nation's future, that our schooling systems be in the top 5 in the world by 2025, which is a recognition you can't have a strong economy in the future with high-skill, high-wage jobs unless you've got great schools. And so that's a shared ambition from the agreement we're signing today.
I mean, if I could just ask you about some comments you made last night. I think you told us before that the revenue coming in to the government will recover over time. I was just wondering if you had a time frame around which you think that's likely to happen, how it's going to happen, and by how much.
Look, you'll see the budget updates when the budget's delivered.
Prime Minister, just back onto Gonski. You said that New South Wales indexation starts in 2016, and that by the end of the transition period, there will be 95% of the commitment. Can you just please explain that a little bit further? And does this mean that New South Wales students won't get the full $5 billion amount.